The Russia-Ukraine war is now days away from its third-year anniversary. At this point, you would expect Volodymyr Zelensky to be doing everything in his power to find an effective way to end the war, end the suffering for his people, and move on to peace. But instead, it seems more like he's looking to find ways to make real, good economic deals for Donald Trump. We're going to try and figure out just what's going on with this and what might be at the heart of Zelensky's actions here. And we have no one better to do that with than Daniel Davis Deep Dive fan fave, Larry Johnson. Larry, welcome back to the show. Can't hear you. Whoops. We can see you, though, and you're looking really good. I'll just say that. Oh, man.
How about that?
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Very good. Well,
sorry.
Now then, welcome back to the show.
Hey, got to hit that unmute button. You know,
I'm told sometimes that makes a difference. I don't know.
I forgot to ask my wife permission to take it off.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Listen, this is, I just got to say, there's just some things that Zelensky is doing that I don't know that you're not going to believe me, but it just seems like it's a little out there because he's not saying the kind of things that would seem to facilitate an end to the conflict, that would seem to be taking what's really going on the ground and being realistic about it. But instead, he seems to be really talking about making financial deals with Donald Trump. And he's just absolutely infatuated with these rare earth minerals and what they allegedly could represent in the future. Even before I show you what he's actually said and get your feedback on some of the specific comments, why do you suppose that he's suddenly focusing on financial stuff? And we're talking within the last 5 or 6 days when he's almost never mentioned anything about rare earths before.
Have you ever been in the deep end of the pool with a drowning man? That's what you're with Zelensky right now, grabbing at anything, trying to come up with any idea possible. He's hit upon, hey, Trump's interested in money. Let's offer him money. Maybe that'll save us. But as I'm sure we'll discuss, Trump has sent some very clear messages in the last week that the United States, when you go to the casino and you play blackjack and the dealer changes, walks away, that's just what Trump has done over the last week. Real quick, number one, turned to the Brits and said, hey, that defense group we've chaired, you guys take it. We're not involved anymore because this securing Ukraine's security, that's on you, the Europeans. Mike Waltz goes on television on Monday, says, yeah, Ukraine going forward, it's a European issue. The Europeans are going to be responsible for that. And then it was announced, I guess, today that at the Munich summit next week, that normally it was chaired by Lloyd Austin under Biden, that Pete Hegseth is just going to sit there and say nothing because it's a European problem now. Well, they got to come up with the money, and the Europeans are broke.
Well, we'll see how excited they are. Keir Starmer has been really boisterous and really talking about they're going to give more than they've ever given in any of the 3 years of the war. But we'll see what it comes down to when it comes to ponying up for that if the U.S. isn't leading the charge on that. But really, to your point there, and even before we get into the Zelensky stuff here, this was a comment by Trump on Truth Social earlier today, where he sent the Treasury Secretary to Ukraine to meet with Zelensky. And here's one of the things that he wrote. This war must and will end soon. He didn't say anything about really looking for too much of a deal, though Trump did say some things on that, because, I mean, who is Trump to ever get rid of, bypass money on the table? He'll certainly go for that. But the focus is not on getting money. The focus is on ending the war. And you see there, and end it soon.
No, Besson's going with an invoice. Hey, I'm not bringing you a check, Zelensky. Here's the invoice. You need to pay us now, which is what Trump's made it very clear. Yeah, we want your rare earth minerals. Yeah, we may give you some more weapons, but you're going to pay for that. You got to give us rare earth minerals. This is going to be a quid pro quo. Uncle Sam's Sugar Shack is now closed. No more candy to pass out. No more free ice cream cones. You're paying for this. And Zelensky's going, whoa, wait a minute. And what Trump is clearly saying is the Europeans pay for it. And I had a conversation this morning with a good friend. He's former British SAS, lives in the States now. But he was just back. He spent time in the UK with some of his former colleagues and some who are current and active duty. And he told me, he says, I don't think the UK can ever recover from this. He says the tax burden, the quality of life, the crime. He says what's going on right now in the UK is so bad that they don't have a strength to rely upon. And yet at the same time, as you noted, here's Starmer saying, yeah, we're going to take the lead. Starmer's now going to be in charge of going out and putting the arm on all the other Europeans to cough up money for Ukraine. It ain't going to happen. And I think that's where Zelensky's realizing it. And this is Trump's way of ending the war by he's going to stop providing the money because it's no longer our job. The Europeans want to provide for the security. Let them do it. And if they're not going to do it, not my fault.
And apparently not my problem. But
yeah,
trying to forestall that, you have Zelensky. I'm going to get your comment on 3 separate things that he said today, because I think they're kind of related. This first one here, he says, those who are helping us to save Ukraine will have the chance to renovate it with their business together with Ukraine businesses. All these things are ready to speak about in detail. Yeah. And actually, go ahead and throw the second one up there, Gary, if you could, because it's also related. We're talking about not just about security, but also about money. I guess Lindsey Graham must be in the room. For us, it will create jobs. For American companies, it will create profits. I mean, it seems to me that he's like, when it was Joe Biden, Zelensky was saying all about democracy and freedom and, doing the right thing. And now with Trump, he's like throwing all that in the garbage because he saw it didn't work anything. And now he's going, okay, well, I read the book, The Art of the Deal. So Trump's interested in cash. So I'm going to give him some cash. Now, I got to say, it's one thing if you're trying to read your audience. I think that's necessary, even not even just okay, but necessary. You need to know who you're talking to. But this just looks to me like really crass. Like, I'm not even worried about my people anymore. I'm just trying to get some cash out. Towards what end? I don't know. What is your thought?
It's the difference between romance and prostitution. And what he's offering now is, I'll pay for it. Well, there's no relationship there. This is purely transactional. And look how far we've come from. We're with you to the end. We're with you to the end. We got your back. Remember those words?
For as long as it takes.
For as long as it takes. Hey, looks like Takes is here. The for long as it takes has shown up.
Well said, yeah.
That's where we're at. I mean, it's this highlights the panic on the part of Zelensky. I mean, this does not speak of somebody who's calm and confident, even though, as you've noted in a recent discussion with Tucker, you still got Ben Hodges, that gentleman, out insisting that, hey, he sounds like the Jim Carrey character from the movie Dumb and Dumber. After the woman has told him, there's no way, and he says, she said, no, there's absolutely no way I'd have a relationship with you, and Jim Carrey goes, so you mean there's still a chance? Yeah, that's Ben Hodges.
We're laughing about it, making fun, but
there's no chance. It's a tragedy. It's a human tragedy.
Let's just go, because there has been more and more talk, and we've said it. I don't even know how many times here on, even when you've been on the show, that these comments are delusional, etc. Yeah. But now, Larry, I'm really starting to think that, like, I'm talking like literal clinical delusion, that he thinks this is going to make a difference. Because here's a question I want to ask you that no one has asked and he hasn't addressed. Let's say that you get these rare earth minerals. Let's say that Trump, and we're going to show in a minute, he's going to talk about $500 million worth. What does he expect Zelensky to get for that $1 billion? What does he think Trump's going to give him? And what's it going to do to the war?
Right. Well, one, it would expose the fact that Trump does not have a lot to give. It's not like we have factories that are blazing away 24/7, churning out artillery barrels, or M1 Abrams tanks, 155 millimeter shells, Javelin missiles, Patriot missiles, HIMARS missiles. No, the factories aren't running like that. We don't have enough in inventory. This has been made clear that if there was a conflict, if war broke out with China, U.S. reserves would be exhausted within a week to 2 weeks tops. So there's no strategic depth at all to our resources. So yeah, give the offer all those the rare earth minerals you want. There is not a magical solution. Now, reportedly, what Trump's really trying to do is put the Europeans in the place where they have to buy stuff from us. So we'll make stuff, we'll sell it to the Europeans, and then the Europeans can figure out what they're going to give to the Ukrainians. That's apparently the deal Trump wants. But
well, I mean, that's just physically impossible that'd be marked years before you get there if you like concerted effort. But we don't have it to give. We don't have it to make.
Right. And so even if we assumed that we had it and we could make it, this is a triad problem. Who's going to operate it? They don't have the manpower. It's not just that you got a warm body sitting in the room. It's that you've got someone who's trained to operate the equipment, and not only operate it, fix it when it goes broke. Because you've seen enough in your career that these machines, they tend to break down, and you don't sit there and say, well, we've got to get the Maytag repairman online and see if we can get on a schedule to come fix it. It used to be in the United States, in our military, that like in World War II, while a lot of people, we didn't have a lot of high school educated people in the ranks, but boy, you had some smart farm boys who could fix the carburetor on an automobile, who could fix the carburetor on a tank.
Yeah.
And they were very adept at fixing things. This generation today, if you put them in, even on the U.S. side, if you need to know how to plug in a video game to a television and computer, they'll know that. But if it's something mechanical,
it's even more than that, Larry, because I mean, when I was a high school senior, I had actually, I'm not embarrassed to say, a 1974 Ford Pinto. That was my very first car. And the head gasket blew out once, and I was able, as a high school senior, to replace that. But now, if something happened to my car in my garage right now, as a somewhat older gentleman, I wouldn't have any idea. The thing's too complicated. And that's the same issue with complex military. Also, we have these high tech, super complex situations that, I mean, only a really trained person, to your point, could fix. Otherwise, you have what we see on the ground out there.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, just one side note about your Pinto. I'm glad that it was the head gasket was the only thing that exploded on that Pinto. Remember?
Yeah, there was some issues with the Ford back then.
We're in those things. All of a sudden, you had a Roman candle. But no, this is the sophistication of the technology that has come to the battlefield. They may be able to fly some drones, but can they actually fix the drones? So we're talking about a level of training and education, actually, that it's not just a matter that, hey, he's alive, he's breathing, so you're in the Army now. It doesn't work that way. And so this is what they can argue all day long about how much equipment we're going to send. What are they going to be able to do with it? And what we've seen over the course really of the last 2 weeks, as Ukraine has made some desperate moves of trying to launch offensives, and the Russians just sitting back. It's a turkey shoot. They are destroying the equipment right and left. They're killing the soldiers or taking them captive. And again, it's burning up. It's a churn that's going into the negative for Ukraine.
I mean, honestly, these remind me of the Nazis' desperations with the Battle of the Bulge. What led to the Battle of the Bulge? They had almost no chance, and that actually succeeded a lot on a large scale, but it was doomed to failure for various reasons. But this is smaller scale. But let me move on a little bit. So that's the delusion really on Zelensky towards Trump, towards what that could even translate into. But it also, I think that there's maybe a little bit bigger of one. I'm going to get your view on this one. Gary, if you can put that third one back up. Zelensky says we'll swap one territory for another, And he's talking about, well, he continued on there. He said, but added that he did not know which part of Russia occupied land Ukraine would ask for in return. But I know we will see it. But all of our territories are important. There's just no priority. What he's saying there is we'll take some of the land we have in the Kursk and we'll swap it for, like, I don't know, Kharkiv or maybe something in the east. What do you say about the prospect that Russia would take back the Kursk area by negotiation, by giving something else up for it?
Yeah, I've got a better chance of buying a Lamborghini in the next half hour. That's not going to happen. He's delusional. Russia's not going to give up territory. Russia's not under pressure to negotiate a ceasefire, a freeze in place, and take a deal where, though, okay, if you remove your troops from Kursk, then we'll let you keep Kherson or Zaporizhia. Nope. Kherson and Zaporizhia now, because of a plebiscite that took place in September of 2022, are part of Russia. They have been brought into the Russian Federation, and then the rest of Russia has voted for the ascension of those former oblasts of Ukraine into the Russian Federation. They're not going back. They're not going away. What Zelensky might be able to hope for is that he gets to live and that he's not going to be arrested and put into a Russian prison for war crimes. That might be one thing he gets. And frankly, I don't think Russia's going to stop until they get Odessa and secure Transnistria. So I think, and I base that on the fact that Putin's language has changed since the June, I guess it was last June of 2024 that he introduced a proposal of, hey, you withdraw your forces from Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, and then we'll talk. He's gone from that to then talking about Novorossiya. And Novorossiya encompasses much more territory, including Sumy, and towns like Poltava.
Yeah, so, we had General Jacques Beau on, who did a whole show, and he talked about Novorossiya and showed it on a map, and yeah, it includes all that. And I'm just saying, if you take morality and nationality out of it and just look at the inputs and the fundamentals from a military perspective, if I was on the Russian side, it would almost not make sense to have a negotiated settlement that left that part, Odessa, in the other side's hands when you have the capacity to take it, because you can literally lock in decades of additional security by cutting off that last part there. That's even if you didn't go all the rest of the way to Dnieper. And it's hard for me to imagine how he's going to just leave that on the table if he has the means to take it.
Yeah. Well, it's a natural barrier. I mean, it's not an impregnable wall. It's a barrier that creates a logistics challenge for any military offensive trying to cross that river, whether crossing from west to east or east to west. I forget who was it that said that, you think that that man can build something that other men cannot breach is just foolishness, because God himself has built mountains and oceans, and men have been able to breach those. So
there's that.
So what we're looking at here is really, I think, the death rattle of Ukraine. And
yeah, and I want to move on to see that, because I think that you're going to see some additional shakes of that rattle in the next few clips we're going to show here. This is Trump with Bret Baier. I'm going to stop it about halfway through here because there's a couple of different things that I think are both important to talk about here. But first of all, we're going to look at, he's talking about how, I think Bret Baier asked him, how can you get both sides to the table?
You want a Ukraine-Russia peace deal, but how do you get both sides to the table?
I think it's going to happen. I think we've made tremendous progress in the last week. We're dealing with the Russians. We're dealing with the Ukrainians. I think there's going to be something done, I hope.
Zelensky says that he's up to doing some equity deal where you get rare earth minerals or something.
Well, I've asked them, look, the United States is in for more than $300 billion, probably 350, and Europe's in for probably $100 billion. We're in for more than twice, maybe even 3 times what they are. This should have never happened. Biden should have never let that happen.
Ukraine, though, you think you can get a deal? Do you keep sending American weapons until you do?
No, what I'm
All right,
saying
pause right
is,
there. So that's a couple things that are important there. I think one is he's again signaling something you referred to earlier when he said, that we're in double what the Europeans are, and I think they need to catch up. So that seems to be consistent with these other signals you're talking about.
Yeah. No, Europe's got to foot the bill now going forward. The United States is done paying. We've been taking everybody else out to dinner and paying the tab. Now everybody else has to step up to the plate. If they want to continue this dinner club, as it were, they've got to pay for my meal. And the Europeans may talk about doing it, but then it comes time to put the money on the table. They don't have it. I mean, Starmer in the UK, they don't have the money. Macron doesn't have the money. The Germans don't have the money. Those are the big three. Everybody else is the tiny Tim countries. They're tiny, sweet, little, with not a lot to offer. So if those three, if Germany, France, and the UK can't pony up the money, Ukraine's got nothing. And so that's where it'll be. We'll see the food fight take place. I think it's next Tuesday in Munich when they assemble the NATO together for the security conference, and basically to, everybody pledge your money to what you're going to give to Ukraine. The United States is going to sit there and say, we're not pledging anything.
Yeah, I think the Munich conference is this week on Thursday, and then the Ramstein conference is the following week. I think the one you're talking about there.
Well, they're doing one at Brussels today. Was it the defense group, the thing that the UK is supposed to chair? That's either today or Thursday in Brussels. And then the next one, I had understood it was to be next week. But, it's in Europe. So.
Yeah. There's a couple of different things that are going to be out there. And that's one. Toward the end of that clip that I just played, you saw Bret Baier ask him, okay, because this has been reported a few times. Well, are you going to keep sending American stuff until you get the deal he wants? It's important now, and we'll restart it in a second. Did you see he doesn't answer that question? He moves on to something else and changes the deal, which is even more important, and I'll get to that in a second. Mm-hmm. But he pointedly didn't answer that question. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, because that's under review. Let's put it that way. This whole Doge effort with Elon Musk finding waste, fraud, and abuse, they're going to start taking a good hard look at where have these weapons gone. And remember, I recall there was a program that Tucker Carlson did recently with someone, and in that there was a discussion about weapons disappearing and not making it to Ukraine. Oh yeah, that would be you. You and Tucker were talking about that, and that's one of the issues that they recognize. A significant amount of materiel that was destined for combat units in Ukraine have made its way onto the black market, and we've known that for, good Lord, more than 2 years. Actually, almost.
And really cared though up to this point. And from many reports that I've read, that the corruption is just through the roof, even from what it was at the beginning, which was already at the top of the bottom list of most corrupt countries in all of the continent of Europe. They were leading that. And of course, it's only exacerbated when you start shoveling money. We learned nothing from the experience in Afghanistan, where we just fueled all the corruption by this unaccountable cash we put in. And it sounds like we just pulled out the same playbook. I don't know, maybe Petraeus gave us some advice on that one.
Ukraine's not as sophisticated at hiding its corruption like we do in the United States. Okay. We just look at the Clinton Foundation and hey, here's $84 million to Chelsea Clinton, that the former head of Samantha Bowers, she tripled her net worth from like 10 million to 30 million while on a $180,000 a year government salary.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens.
She's a shrewd investor. Yeah, that's all. While Americans like to sit back and go, yeah, those Ukrainians, they're corrupt. Yeah, we are too. We're just better at hiding it than they are. That's what, if nothing else, we're upset at them for being so clumsy about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue any of that. In the next part of this clip here, Trump's going to make one statement that he, in the course of this interview, he didn't really, Brett Baer didn't actually pick up on it, but a lot of other people did. Let me see if you can catch it.
Until you do?
No, what I'm saying is the following. They have tremendously valuable land in terms of rare earth, in terms of oil and gas, in terms of other things. I want to have our money secured because we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars. And, you know, they may make a deal, they may not make a deal, they may be Russian someday, or they may not be Russian someday, but we're going to have all this money in there. And I say, I want it back. And I told them that I want the equivalent, like $500 billion worth of rare earth, and they've essentially agreed to do that. So at least we don't feel stupid.
So, which part did you pick up?
Yeah, they're going to pay back for everything. They're on the hook, and whether they are Ukrainian or Russian.
That's the one. That's the one where he seemed to imply, hey, maybe we make a deal. Maybe we don't. Maybe everybody ends up Russian. That tells me, and you're a big one on signaling. If I'm a Russian and I hear him say that, and that's not the first time he said it, I hear, okay, we're getting close to the same sheet of music here because we're either going to get a good negotiated deal or we're going to take what we want militarily, and that's going to include a whole lot more of Ukraine than we have right now. How do you read it?
Well, that's where Trump gets off into fantasy land because Russia controls those areas that have those rare earth minerals, have the gold, have the coke, not cocaine, but the coke used for making steel, have the coal mines. So it's Russia that's in control of that, and Russia's not going to turn around and give it to the United States. And in fact, if anything, Trump's wanting to get a bill to have Ukraine pay for what we've given them. Russia's going to turn around and give us a bill. Hey, this is what you owe us because you funded this war. You front loaded it. You invested your capital to attack us. We've had to spend money in order to fight back and protect ourselves. Here's the bill. And so I see some of that as being on the table with negotiations.
Well, and one of the other things that I want to point out here from, and this is a pretty short clip I'm about to play here. One of the things that many have been speculating for really even since before the inauguration, that Trump would bring in Kellogg and they would have this tough negotiating deal. And if the Russians didn't budge, he would bring in more pressure. He would do more sanctions. He would, you may remember, in fact, I don't know if you do, but shortly after the election, Sebastian Gorka, the intellectual giant of our age, suggested that if Putin didn't do what Trump told him to do, he was going to say that all the sanctions we've done for the last 3 years were like peanuts and we go big in here. Well, you had Brett Baer kind of resurrect that, and watch what Trump doesn't say.
How do you get Putin? Do you squeeze him to get him to the table? I mean, how do you...
It would have, look, I say it all the time. This would have never happened if I were president.
So he literally didn't answer the question, but that's a change from what Trump, or at least his lieutenants have been saying since the beginning. How do you read that?
Well, I read that as he had already had a conversation with Putin, and Putin had made it very clear that, Mr. President, I don't know where you're getting your information. If you think our economy's in trouble, we had 4.1% growth last year. You're a businessman. You know what that means. That means our economy's doing really well. And the problems we have with inflation, we've got that under control, much more than you do. So at least we don't have an egg shortage in Russia. Okay, so I think that may have caught Trump up a little bit with surprise, because the intelligence community has been lying to Donald Trump, and they've been putting out information that's false and misleading, because they're saying, oh, it's Russia's. Trump has started with the assumption that Russia was hurting economically and Russia was suffering catastrophic losses. So naturally, he's assuming anybody that's in that kind of situation is going to want to negotiate a deal. They're going to want to find a way to ease the pain, ease the suffering. Well, Putin says, no, we're defending ourselves. We're going to make sure that we no longer face a threat from NATO, and that you can never again use Ukraine to threaten us militarily. And our economy's doing fine. So, if you think we've got to make some concessions to you, you're mistaken. And Putin will do this in a very polite way. He's not going to be nasty. He's a trained negotiator from the standpoint of being a lawyer. So he's going to have a direct conversation with Trump. Now, it's interesting that they released this other American that had been held for taking medical marijuana into Russia. And so what we haven't seen reported is, what did Russia get in return for that? Who did the United States release?
Oh, I'm sure it was just a gift. I'm sure they didn't get anything.
Yeah.
Russia's famous for that.
Yeah, those Russians are a bunch of suckers.
They're just giving the store away left and right. Well, I think we're going to find out a little bit more this coming, really in the next week to 10 days, because there's going to be as you talk about the Brussels meeting that's going on right now, there's reportedly a meeting between Zelensky and J.D. Vance ahead of the Munich summit. Kellogg's there, a number of other people are there. And then there's also some reports that Zelensky may meet Trump after that. And then this whatever this other conference is that the UK is going to try to run in the next days. I think we're going to start to see the contours of something coming out here pretty soon. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that. In the remainder of the time here, I want to shift gears to something else that Trump was talking about in that same interview, and a lot going on in the Middle East that I think we need to do a little analysis on. First of all, Trump was kind of summing up his view of the Middle East and how he's looking for beautiful areas to come about for everyone.
This has been going on for forever, right? Forever. Now it's essentially a demolition site. There's practically no building that's livable in the whole thing, on the whole Gaza Strip. I say we go in, we knock them all down, we just create something. No more Hamas. There's no Hamas there. There's nobody there. We move them into beautiful areas of the Middle East. I'd like to go to Egypt. They have a lot of land. I'd like to go to Jordan. It would be a beautiful pice of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them. Because if they have to return now, it'll be years before you could ever. It's not habitable. It will be years before it could happen. I'm talking about starting to build, and I think I could make a deal with Jordan. I think I could make a deal with Egypt. We give them billions and billions of dollars a year.
Okay, I'm going to talk specifically about Jordan and Egypt separately, but one of the things that he kind of was weaved throughout that commentary there, and many of his other comments here recently, I'd like you to speak on, because I hardly ever hear anybody else address this in the West, and that is, under what circumstances do you think the Palestinian people would willingly relocate, even if he found Egypt and Jordan to open up their doors?
They wouldn't. And that's what he fails to understand. He is laboring under the impression that the rubble was created by Hamas, instead of acknowledging that the rubble was created by bombs and missiles delivered to the Israelis by the United States under Joe Biden. And now, most recently, he's sending 2,000-pound bombs over. So the Palestinians didn't do this to themselves. This was done to them by the Israeli military. So he's got to understand that, number one. The other thing, is sort of problematic. I understand, he's some people listen to him think that he hates the Palestinians. See, I don't think he hates the Palestinians, but what he does not acknowledge or grasp is that the Palestinians were there. This is their homeland. They didn't just, they're not a bunch of gypsies who were just traveling along and said, well, let's set up camp here because we're tired. We don't want to go any farther. No, this has been the Palestinian land for centuries, for close to we're close to 2,000 years. So it's not territory that the Jews controlled and dominated. Not at all. They were the Jewish rule over the area was eliminated in 70 A.D. And since then, there have been the Ottomans. Controlled it for a large number of years, the Romans. But his failure to understand that means that these Palestinians, they're not prostitutes. They're not people that are going to get bought off. You think you can just wave some bucks in front of their nose, and that they're just nothing but a bunch of money grubbers who are going to, okay, yeah, we'll go live in Egypt because you've waved some money in front of our face.
Yeah. I think that I've heard someone recently saying, I think there's a lot of plausibility to it that he probably genuinely is moved by the human suffering, because he's also been motivated by the human suffering in the Russia-Ukraine war. And he's, I think, thinking, if I was in that rubble and someone offered me a place to go to, a place where there wasn't war and that they would be able to build and have a life, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Right.
But he's not one of those people. And I think that's where the problem is.
Yeah.
Danny, we actually have him addressing that specifically right here in that same news conference.
So what if it does not bring peace to the Middle East? There are many Palestinians, even though you say that everything is going to be beautiful, everything is going to be lovely, they're not going to want to go back. There are going to be people who want to go back and feel like that it is their right to do that. You haven't said, will there be any type of repercussions or anything that happens?
We don't think that's going to happen. We think people are going to be very happy, thrilled. A lot of those people that you're talking about are going to end up maybe living there and maybe working there, but it'll be in a different form. We have had tremendous support for this project, and we think the biggest asset of the project, it's going to bring peace ultimately to the Middle East. All right.
Yeah, I just wonder who's advising him and making him, because you saw how confidently he just dismissed that question and said, no, I think this is going to bring peace. And I truly think he believes what he's saying, but wow, how much disappointment do you think he may discover?
Well, I held out hope that his, because he is a big thinker about trying to get a big deal and to secure peace between Israel and Iran and between Israel and the Arab world. I think he's genuine about wanting to do that, but is lacking a full understanding of the history that has created that region. Part of it is, unfortunately, in the United States, particularly within evangelical Christianity and within Orthodox Judaism, there is a certainty that the Old Testament is a divine, holy book, and that in that book it directs that God says that this land is the land of Israel. Okay, so if you believe that, yeah, I can understand why you think, yeah, this land is ours and it doesn't belong to these Amaleks. They have to be destroyed because that's what the book says. If you don't accept that book as something that God wrote down with by dictating it to Moses, but that instead it was written by Jews who were in exile in Tehran back, more than 2,500 years ago, and that they wrote a story out that really conveniently explained why they were going to take all that land back. Well, that gives an entirely different cast to it.
Well, and as a born again believer, I would argue that they need to go back and actually read the text, because that's not what it says. It doesn't say that you're going to get the land back. It said that God, at a time of his choosing, will make things happen, not man, not somebody in the Middle East who decides this or whatever. Too many times a bit of a tangent here, but too many times we say, I got this from here, God, don't worry about it. I'll take it from here. And it never works out, and it won't here either.
Well, and you don't select anywhere in there where it says that Donald Trump will take ownership of
I didn't read that part. I looked at it recently, and it's not there.
So he's trying to construct this grand deal, but what has happened with Hamas over the course of the last 15 months is the support for Hamas has gone up, not gone down.
Right.
Now, the reason the Israeli security service, Mossad, funded Hamas for many years was in order to weaken any prospect of a negotiated peace settlement and to use Hamas as a lever against the Palestinian Authority. And so you've had internal divisions. And let's not pretend that there is a unified Palestinian vision. There are at least 14 different groups. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is probably the most prominent, but it's not just Hamas. But what has clearly been demonstrated is Hamas has not been defeated by the Israeli military. Now, Trump is saying that all the hostages have to be released by Saturday or else. So I do anticipate that by Sunday, the war will be back on. Israel will be back conducting military operations. But that means that the Houthis, who have been They've upheld their part of the system. They haven't launched a thing. They're going to start striking, and Hezbollah is going to start striking. And then Trump, I fear, is going to feel, well, we can't let that happen. And there is, I've heard from people that, you would think should know better. They assumed, they believe that while Biden was in office and those attacks took place, that it was just the United States wasn't trying. We let it happen. We didn't retaliate. Well, that wasn't the case. And so what Donald Trump will discover as he tries to engage and militarily, breaking his promise to the American people not to get us embroiled in foreign wars, runs the risk of this getting us involved in a foreign war there in the Middle East. Only the table has changed, that the tensions between Israel and Turkey are greater now than they were 3 months ago because of what's happened in Syria. Initially, both of them sort of cooperated to get rid of Assad, and now all of a sudden, there's some buyer's regret on the part of the Turks, and they're chafing at the fact that Israel's attacking into Syria. So at the very time that Israel has now extended its limited military capability, where it has to fight in Syria, it has to fight in Lebanon, fighting in the West Bank, and the fighting going back to war in Gaza, that the Israeli army is not in great shape to do that. And assumptions that Trump's made on that front, I think he's going to be shocked to discover, hey, that was, I was lied to.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why Israel agreed to a ceasefire in both Hezbollah as well as Hamas, because they needed to. And I certainly hope that your fears are not realized this weekend.
You mean both.
I hope that they can find a way out of that. But I want to look at a couple in the amount of time we have left here. I want to shift to another really thorny part of this that I wonder if you can kind of give your views on this. In that first clip I showed you on the Middle East there, Trump was talking about he's gonna get both Egypt and Jordan to open that up. I think he says 99% sure he's going to get that to happen. Well, King Abdullah of Jordan was in the White House today, and as I show you this clip here, and just for the sake of our viewers, Jordan has, according to reports I've seen earlier today, somewhere between 2.5 to 3 million Palestinian refugees living in their country, have been for decades, and they've taken about 1 million total from Syria who had been fleeing their civil war and all the strife that's been going on there. So they're already bursting at the seams with lots of people. So now that when you have Trump coming in and apparently wanting them to take something close to another million, and maybe Egypt another million. Here's what King Abdullah said he's willing to do today.
One of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible, and then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on the Gaza challenges.
So what 2,000 children, he specified, cancer patients and whatever. So we're talking about a very, very small minority of people, not just generally people. What do you make of his willingness to do that at the press conference with Trump standing right there, as opposed to like saying 800,000 will take?
Well, it's acknowledging the reality that almost every single hospital and medical center in the Gaza Strip has been destroyed. And that the reality is, when you have children in a population of 2 million Palestinians, you're going to have sick children. Well, they don't have a hospital to go to. So taking in 2,000, it's a symbolic gesture. I think Abdullah, did you notice his eyes?
I did.
Boy, he was, a little, I call that a nervous tick. Okay. He's not entirely comfortable. And he kept deferring about what they would do in terms of, at no point did he come and say, I 100% agree with President Trump. We got to get those Palestinians out of there.
I want to just point out also, and if you can comment on this, that would be great. That I also saw reports this morning that there have been a lot of protests inside Jordan, and they don't want any more of the refugees to come in. They don't want anybody from anywhere else to come in, and they're actually upset because they don't want Jordan to be seen as being complicit in ethnic cleansing. What do you know of that?
No, I agree. And in fact, Doug McGregor has frequently pointed out in his previous discussions with you that the street level in both Jordan and in Egypt are decidedly against what the United States is doing, what Israel is doing, and don't want to provide any support for this kind of plan, that they support the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people. So it runs the risk of destabilizing both of these governments. And, that's the risk that Abdullah faces now, as king of Jordan, that he could be destabilized.
And now let's see the other half of the equation there, the Egyptian side. Here's what Trump said.
With Egypt, I think you're going to see some great progress. I think with Jordan, you're going to see some great progress. Three of us, and we'll have some others helping, and we're going to have some others at a very high level helping, and the whole thing will come. It's not a complex thing to do. And with the United States being in control of that piece of land, a fairly large piece of land, you're going to have stability in the Middle East for the first time. Not 100%, but 99%, we're going to work out something with Egypt. And we have other countries that want to get involved. We have a lot of people that want to get involved. There's a great sense of wanting to help the Palestinians. There's a lot of good countries out there, people that rule those countries with big hearts, and this gentleman is at the top of the list.
So let's take that in two parts there. First of all, what do you make about his 99% probability he's going to get Egypt to pony up? Do you think that Egypt can domestically absorb that many people and the political heat that would come?
They can absorb that. They've got the space, but they do not have the political will. Trump is counting on the fact that our financial leverage is sufficient that the Egyptians can be blackmailed into it. If that comes to pass, it is likely to be a Pyrrhic victory, because the blowback in Egypt, I think, will be significant. And let's deal with the practicalities. So the president is saying that he's going to take control of Gaza, that it's going to be American controlled, but we're not going to have any troops on the ground. And we're not going to spend any money. So how exactly do you control a territory unless you have a physical presence on it and you are providing the money? Now, if he says, well, the Saudis will step in and provide all the money. Well,
he did say that.
Those who pay for it, then usually they get to control what happens and have a large say at the table. So that's where I think, I understand. I think some of this he's saying just in order to try to get a deal. I think it is grossly over-optimistic that the Egyptians are going to sign on. Because remember, you saw Abdullah say that, well, the Egyptians and the Saudi, they're all talking back channel, and they're not going, man, this suggestion by Donald Trump is terrific. We can't wait to do it. You're not seeing that. They're trying to figure out, how do we tell them no without creating a big blow up in the region? Because that's they're trying to navigate that.
Yeah, well, let's. I mean, we're going to continue to watch this, but as you said, I mean, we're coming up on a decision point here pretty quick. If this issue with apparently the delay in releasing some of the hostages that Hamas has said they're going to do, and Trump's now declaration that they'll be back by Saturday or they'll be held to pay, etc. I just truly do hope that doesn't go sideways. But if it does, we'll certainly ask you back on to explain it to us what's been going on here. Listen, I want to let people know that we have actually a big doubleheader on tap for tomorrow. We have Doug McGregor, who you mentioned a second ago. He's going to be on at noon, and then followed right behind that is John Mearsheimer. So McGregor-Mearsheimer, it's a doubleheader. So one of the cooler ones we've had. So looking forward to seeing that tomorrow. You guys can watch that. And also, Larry mentioned a couple of times this video that I was on with Tucker Carlson. That's hosted in the description down there. You can find a link to that, or you can just Google it on Tucker's site. I'm sure you'll find it right there. But just want to let you guys know about those.
Worth watching. I won't let you. You can't do all the self-promotion. It's worth watching.
Well, I appreciate it. It was certainly fun to do. And it was an honor to be requested by Tucker Carlson. So we're very grateful for that. But appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Larry, always, as we do, and look forward to having you back on very soon.